Have you been working out? What about me?
Let's find out.
Ow! It's so like
As a
a
matter
guy.
of fact, the Nola Loft has got a
workout
little gym where I've
Can
been
you show
frequenting.
Can you show the folks what's on your feet?
What's on my feet?
Mm-hmm.
No shoes.
New shoes.
These are what we call Air Force One
Lunars.
And if anybody watches me, I know some people have Nike issues. I've been told I'm going to get bad karma for it. Sorry about that, but it's the only shoe.
I think they're fixing things, right?
I hope
Doing
so.
some stuff.
All I know is I would otherwise have to go barefoot because I can't wear any other shoes. They're the only shoes that fit my weird feet. So, oh. So, hey, show everybody your shoes. No, shut up. That's
I'm just saying.
That's
You just have.
Just to let me finish politely.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so they're takeoffs on my Air Force Ones that are made for walking and running. So they're comfy for working dogs. So I'm gonna excuse myself, cry a quiet tear, and. Hey everybody, it's Sean with the Good Dog, and this is Q&A Saturday, delay of game style. 12. Guys, we've been trying to get this out to you guys for a long time, but I was in New Orleans and Laura was in LA, and we couldn't find a tech solution, so we got stuck. And then we got home and all the boarding trains came in, so it's been a landslide of ill-behaved pooches. So forgive us for being a little bit slow in the draw here.
Yes. So in that, we're going to add an extra question to the mix just to make up for it.
How nice of us to make up for that. We're so nice.
Question number 1. This is Heather Sears, and Jennifer Lloyd seconds on this. She says, I'm having the same problem as Heather, and kind of piggybacks on it.
Let it rip.
So Heather says, hi, I have an 8-month-old lab who's very bratty. My question is, how do I get her to greet people properly? She runs them over and even jumps on them when they're sitting on the couch, which she's not allowed on in the first place, and I have to put her in place, and all she does is whine. I have to replace her almost every 5 minutes. Please help. We're very sociable people, and we want her to be able to socialize with us.
Hey, Heather. Okay, so you're in good company. 8-month-old labs tend to be a little nutty, a little bit high energy, a little crazy.
Just a little.
That you kind of bought into that one. Personally, I mean, if it was my situation, I'd want to go to e-collar training just because you're gonna brush up against limitations with just leash and prong. I don't even know if you're doing leash and prong. So let's start there. So if you're not doing leash and prong, if you're just trying to get the dog to stay in place and you don't have any tool on, any way to correct or anything like that, you're really gonna struggle. And the brattiness is just going to be reinforced because your dog's going to get away with it multiple times. So if you don't have that, then the least you got to do, the first steps would be get a leash and prong on your dog and have your dog drag around the leash attached to the prong. Anytime that your dog is in the house supervised by you, leash and prong come off anytime that you're not supervising. And do place command, do thresholds, walk the dog on that, get the dog into a good space everywhere, not just when guests come in. You'll hear me say it all the time. It's the last place you want to fight big battles is in the big battle. You want to fight it all over the place. You want to have her in such a good space on walks, at thresholds, place command when the world is just mildly stimulating, that when things get really nutty, you've got all of this leverage, all of these muscles kind of already built. So you have a real shot at success, and your dog's been conditioned to deal with distractions, even when things get a little nutty. So that would be the very basics. I would go to an e-collar program, like I said, if it was me, because then you can have a really problem-free life, and you can really enjoy your dog at a much higher level. You can have a lot more fun with your lab, have them off-leash in places that you can have them off-leash, and have total recall. And then that was for Arnie. And then also be able to correct for whining or anything like that goes on. You could be sitting across the room, your dog whines, and you can correct with the e-collar and actually get rid of that. Otherwise, if leash and prong, you have to go get up and go take care of it. Without a leash and prong, you'll just be dancing back and forth with your dog while they get away with that. So that's my A to your Q for that one. And
on that same Jennifer, kind of the
Yeah.
one that piggybacked,
Yeah.
she says, she's got her dog on an Einstein educator, and he knows place command well, and she's been working with, the dog with people coming in the house, and when people still come in, she's still having to go up to like 40. She can call him off and all that stuff, but she needs to have him stay on place and get rid of all the barking because he barks excessively. So my guess is probably that you may not be going high enough on the collar initially, because although he's calming down and you're able to affect him at that point, initially you may need a higher level just to break through that intensity or fog of intensity, as Sean puts it.
Yeah, because your dog is going to be, when in normal situations, your dog's state of mind will be much more mild, so you'll be able to use much lower levels and effectively communicate. Now, when there's an explosive thing for your dog, which guests coming in the house is an explosive thing for your dog, 40 probably doesn't feel like much. 40 probably feels like 10 or 15. And this collar, while we used it on 99% of the dogs, it's a mild collar. It's actually made for small dogs, so it's a very soft collar. Yeah. So 40 on that might sound like a big number to you, but it's not a big number. He's a
lab mastiff boxer mix.
So that's obviously not effective or valuable for your dog. And we always tell owners to let the dog tell you what level is valuable, because this thing doesn't know anything, right? The only one who knows anything is the dog as far as what levels to be used. So we can get stuck on levels in our mind and be like, I don't want to go any higher because I don't want to hurt my dog, and that totally makes sense. But one of the most valuable things that I can share with you and anybody else who's struggling with a situation like this and who's already conditioned their dog to the e-collar is, in an explosive moment like that, be prepared for it. Go up considerably higher and cap that excitement and bring it down. Don't stir the pot, because like 40 at that point might be revving your dog up, or 25 or 30 might be just lifting him up. And it might slowly start to get him to like decline or relax. But the better, if you want to create a future inhibition to where the problem, to where you don't have to fight the battle every single time, then you need to create a future inhibition, which is a bigger, higher value correction for that. So the next time guests come in, your dog goes, you know what, I'm going to sit tight. I'm not going to bark. I'm not going to go crazy. Yeah. But if every time the explosion has all this like juicy value for your dog, he gets all this adrenaline rush and dopamine and all this stuff surges through his body, and it's very, very valuable. And then the correction comes, and the correction is like not that valuable. He's going to always go, this choice always is more payoff for me. So Laura used to have issues like this with her dog, except a little bit more explosive, jumping, at windows and things like that when people walk by. So we corrected him twice with an IQ, which is pretty comparable to this, at a very high level. And he never did it again. So after that, he had a future inhibition built in, which was when people come to the door or come by the window and I act like this, it's really uncomfortable, so I'm going to prioritize a different choice. So I would go off the 40, and I would, to be perfectly honest, I know I don't know your dog, but it's something where I'd probably go to 80, and I would just start right there, and I wouldn't work up. I wouldn't go 40, 60, 80. That's how you lift the dog up. You want to cap it. So somebody comes to the door, they knock, dog starts to lift off, bang. Your dog might even break place at that moment, but what'll happen is they might break place, but their state of mind will clear, and then you can calmly call them back over to place. And now you actually have a dog you can start to work with because the mind isn't so elevated. Yeah. So that's not the pretty side of things, and that's like, when we talk about low-level e-collar training, 99% of it is low level, and it's about teaching behaviors of very low pressure, but there are times where you need higher level communication or conversation for it to be valuable for your dog to succeed and to break through and not be stuck in a cycle. Yeah. So that would be my recommendation. I'm sure Laura would say the same thing. Yeah. We've both seen it a number of times. You can either fight this battle for the rest of your life, or you can use a higher level correction and actually get this thing
knock it out
done.
Yeah.
And then move on from there, and then you can use lower levels.
Yeah. Have the dog be more social and more included because of that, not uncomfortable thing that you had to do, but then you get to include him in your life, and he can chill when your friends come and all that stuff. So
yeah.
Question number 2. This is from Cindy. Save it. Save it, Cindy. And Marion Tabar, she also
probably heard that like so many times in her life.
Marion Tabar seconded this notion.
Okay.
In one of your training videos, you briefly mentioned that people sometimes mistakenly believe the answer to energy or behavior problems is more and more exercise. So you said maybe that's not always the case.
Yeah.
Can you expand on this? What is a good method to determine what amount of exercise the dog needs and at what level? Walking, running, hill hiking, dog play. Is excess energy ever an excuse for bratty behavior? Is training and the mental effort involved less, more, or equal to physical activity? And what ratio of structured walk time to fetch, goofing off playtime? She's gone through our whole DVD and it's great.
Great. Awesome.
Yay.
This is Cindy, right?
Yep.
So this is a tough one, Cindy. So without knowing your dog, it's really hard for me to say. There is no specific ratio. It's really individual dogs, what their needs are. I think the post that you're referring to, or posts, is really that a lot of trainers just recommend exercise as the solution, and they never teach the dog how to practice impulse control or calm the mind down or have the dog do its own work. So you could just try and wear the dog out, but that's going to have some pretty limiting returns, and we see a lot of owners struggle with that, where the dog just becomes a super athlete, never actually learns how to chill out. So I'd say strike a nice balance. Get yourself a nice 45-minute, structured walk-in. After that, get some high-level fun play. If your dog likes a ball, you can throw the ball, do all that stuff. Within that play session, you can create structure and make it really valuable. So you can throw the ball, your dog comes back, and put your dog in a downstay, and now the exercise is, I throw the ball, but the dog doesn't go to get the ball until I release them. Now you got impulse control being built into the game, and so the game is fun, burns off energy, but it's also good stuff for the mind and for the relationship. So I would definitely recommend like some high energy like release stuff, but then I'd recommend a whole host of like calming exercises to teach your dogs how to cope with life, and that it's not just being a dog doesn't just give you a golden key to just be a nut all the time, that all of us have to do our work, that there's times where I would rather go, lollygag around and do my stuff, but I have to work, and sometimes dogs have to do things. If they'd rather be doing something else, it's still, I need you to be in place. I need you to be calm. I need you to be relaxed. I know you haven't run a marathon today, but this is what I need. And if you condition that over and over again, you condition your dog to learn how to be in place for long periods of time, for good stretches, you'll really condition your dog to be able to just manage himself. And then you can go back and forth. I mean, we play red light, green light, off and on switch, which is like, especially with e-collar training, it works really, really well. But we'll have a dog, we'll play with them, roughhouse, get silly, and then down. And then we'll dance around. Touch the dog has to keep in the down, like, this is really tough. So we're doing a lot of stimulation, a lot of distraction work, and then break, and then the dog, and we play, and bring the energy up, and then down. So that can be a really good exercise as well. So, but the main thrust of what I'm trying to get across is that if you just try and do exercise as your answer to calming dogs down, you will struggle, because it's not enough in and of itself to create what we're looking for. We're looking to create a mindset where a dog does its work, and dogs are very capable of doing it. Now, to answer your last question, is brattiness ever acceptable because of high energy? I wish that it would have been when I was a child, because I would have gotten away with a lot more and not been grounded so much. But I'd say no. Now, if you're not doing your work, if you're not creating structure, you're not creating rules and consequences for breaking, known behaviors, or
if you're not walking your dog, or not doing anything that.
If you're not doing your end of the bargain, then you're going to run up against a lot of struggle, and it's going to be really unfair for your dog to try and manage itself. So the reason I gave you the equation I gave you is because then it's really fair to say, hey, I need you to be calm and quiet. I've taken care of your needs. I've walked you. We've been stimulated. We bonded. We've traveled together. I played with you. We've got the excess stuff out. Your dog may be able to play for 8 days, but too bad. That's not what we're doing. So you get your structured walk. You get your playtime. And now it's quiet time. And so it's work. Like your dog's clocking in, going to work. So that's how I feel best to balance that out and take care of both ends of things. So when I want to ask for the quiet and the calm and the relaxed, I know I've done my part and that my dog now needs to do his part. So it's hard for people. A lot of people just want to see dogs run and play, and I get that. But if you're one of those people, I'm not saying you, Cindy, but I'm just saying in general, you most likely will have dogs that drive you nuts. So you better live on a ranch where they can just run all day long and a strong door so they can't get inside. So that's my answer to that, is balance that out and then judge the exercise levels by your dogs individually, which I can't do for you, unfortunately, from here. So.
And also, Cindy, you'd mentioned that you wish that we'd included a non-e-collar recall in our DVD.
How dare you,
How
Cindy?
dare you? No, the reason that we didn't is because we just don't find it to be a reliable recall, especially, the thing we don't want to do is say, oh, this is your recall, and then someone takes their dog out to the park and runs in the street, and you don't have that. So we prefer an e-collar. But if you're just doing basic recall inside the house, you can have a prong collar on your dog with a long leash. And then you say, come. If the dog doesn't come, then no. Pop the collar and guide them back over, just the same way as you do with anything else. So it's the command, come. If the dog doesn't do the behavior, pop, correction with a no, and then come again with the leash.
And start with small distances. Mm-hmm. People think that recalls need to be built with these big, long recalls. And we traditionally build recalls inside our place right here, mat to mat, and the mats might only be 3 feet apart. Yeah. So it doesn't need to be this big distance for a dog to get the concept of recall. So you can use short leash, and like Laura's saying, you don't need this big long leash, short leash. Get the dog to turn its head, come towards you. You can use food if you want to sweeten the pot, and use a little more motivation like that. If your dog is food motivated, if he's not food motivated, then cut back some of his food and make training the time where he earns his food. Cut back all of his food if you really want to go whole hog, and then reward him to where he's really motivated to do the recall with the food stuff. So it's a fairly simple process. Leash on, short distance, give the command, pop if the dog doesn't come, and then reel him in, reward with food, and repeat, and then go to a longer line, get the recalls longer and longer and further. But the problem is dogs are smart, and dogs know when leashes are on and when leashes are off. And that's the value of e-collars, is that, dog's got an e-collar on, you don't have a leash on him, but he learns that no matter what, when you call him, he's got to come. And psychologically, that's a big game changer. So without it, you can find yourself in situations where you've got competing interests and your dog wants to go somewhere, but you want him to come with you, and you don't have a way to enforce that, and a different decision than what you want gets made. And that can be dangerous, deadly, and just frustrating. So that's why we didn't include it. And I know it's a very traditional part of the training thing, but we only do recall with e-collar stuff because we want our clients to always have their dogs come back. And so that's just how we go about that. That's why we didn't include it. But it's a good question, so if other people were curious about it.
Yep. Okay, question number...
Who?
Trace. Katie Myers. Katie says, my dog seems to know when the e-collar is on or not on her. She listens better, obviously, when she has it on. My previous lab was the same way. How do I fix this? I don't want to keep it on her all the time, and I know she should listen to me, not the collar. I think the main problem is that she doesn't have any focus on me and what I'm saying. Are there any exercises we could do to get her to focus and watch me as if I have a tasty treat without actually having one?
Phony tasty treat.
She is extremely food motivated, but I don't like to use treats all the time because she only focuses on that.
Yeah.
She can hold place, wait by doors, ton of foundation, but when something interesting flies by her, it's tough getting interest back on me.
Yeah. Katie, okay, so it's a good question. We were just talking about dogs being leash-wise, right? We were just talking about dogs knowing when a leash is on and when a leash isn't on. Dogs are much smarter than most folks give them credit for, and so same thing can transpire with e-collars. The best way to avoid this would be, and it sounds like you kind of already hiccuped a bit in that you've tried to is that a client? No. You've tried to get your dog to comply or be obedient without the e-collar on, and so your dog has learned that when I don't feel this pressure of this collar on me, that I can actually make different decisions and mom can't do anything. So unfortunately, that tone's already getting set. So what we recommend for our clients and what we do with dogs here is that we don't give any commands without the e-collar on. It's we pattern, and what the goal is to not give the dog any chance to gamble and get away with it, and pattern so completely, so comprehensively, so consistently that the dog is really become conditioned that I hear this word, I come. I hear this word, I come. I hear this word, I don't even think about something else. But in the process of conditioning, if I hear this word and I come, I hear this word, and this time I didn't want to come because I was distracted, and mom couldn't do anything about it. It starts to melt everything down. So this is challenging stuff. Now you can get like dummy collars. They have dummy collars you can put on your dog, and they're lighter, and the dog feels the pressure. And for a lot of dogs, that will kind of bridge that gap. My personal thing is that e-collars are so darn easy to put on a dog. I'm not sure the resistance, except for maybe emotionally, feeling like you don't want to lean on a tool and you really want it to be like you and your dog, au naturel. That part I get.
Like outside, you should always have it on.
Yeah.
That's not even a question. I hope that's not even the question, because if a coyote or a herd of buffalo or a car backfires and your dog is off leash and gets spooked and runs in the street, you want to always have that. It's like wearing your seatbelt. We're not even ever going to talk about having your dog outside with no e-collar on. But if you're talking about inside, personally, I feel like if the dog is blowing off if the dog is collar wise, I personally feel like there wasn't enough patterning done and there wasn't high enough levels used for the dog to buy in that there's actually a relationship change that's gone on since the training.
Yeah, and consequences for not making the right choice after you've been fairly trained and all that good stuff.
People that we know that try to move through the e-collar too quick are typically the ones the dog becomes, I only act up, I only act well when that thing's on me.
Yeah.
But if it just becomes a part of them, like my dog Polar Bear, when I could, collar or not, I patterned it for so long, for like a year, where he had it on all the time, that it was like it was on him. He didn't even know any other way. Yeah. The commands would override all of his other stuff. And it wasn't that we had this amazing relationship that he loved and respected me, far from that, but he really respected the commands because I'd patterned it long enough. And we see that same thing with clients.
Yeah. So it's just a dog going ape outside the window. Yeah. An on-leash introduction, just like we always tell you not to do. That's what's going on. Little bananas out there. So think about, this is Katie, right? So think about any kind of habit, just equate it with a human thing. So there's certain habits that we've been doing, that if you do them long enough, they become so habitual, thus a habit. You don't even think about it. It's just automatic. It just happens. Even if there's a conflicting thing, like, I've got this, but I got to do this thing. I brush my teeth every time after I work out, or every time I do this. And so I think that's what we're looking to create with dogs, is a habit that's so deeply ingrained that they just default to it. They just default to it. And there's no shortcut except for patterning, like Laura's saying, and being really consistent, really diligent, and not feeling negative, bad, or that you're cheating, that you're using the e-collar, or that your dog's listening to the collar, not you. Sure, you're using the collar as an extension of you for right now until you've conditioned and bridged that gap to where your dog is so deeply conditioned that it's just a non-issue. So I would go back to basics. Anytime your dog's out of the crate, e-collar's on, not 24/7, but anytime that he's out of the crate, you've got that collar on, so you can always make sure you get what you want, and then thus condition him to know that whenever mom gives a command, I always do what she's looking for. And then you do this long enough, and then you'll find out that there's a point where, like, you've been working and you'll see a change. You'll see less resistance. You'll see not having to correct. You'll see a dog just buying in. And that, like Laura said, it might be 6 months, might be a year down the road. I mean, this stuff takes time. We're training animals to do stuff, and they want to do other things. Yeah. So I would say go back to basics, start over, and work your butt off with a really consistent approach, and recondition your dog.
Yeah. Okay, question number 4. This is
gonna be a long one.
4.
I mean, if we're at 4,
I know.
I'm rambling.
That's okay. We'll speed it up. Okay. Suzanne Hazeltine says, hello, we recently came across your Facebook page. We've been enjoying your posts. We live in a village in the outskirts of Mexico and accidentally got involved in rescuing dogs. I'm just going to skip through some stuff. So a few months ago, we captured a dog who was having litter after litter in the street and had become aggressive. We had her spayed, and she spent a week in our yard recuperating from all of the trauma. During this time, I was eventually able to get close to her and pet her. She's like a Dobie mutt, about 4. She now lives with us, running free in the farm fields as before, getting handouts from the butcher, hanging out around our house, playing with our dogs, eating her meals, guarding our place, and barking all night. She comes when we call her and will sniff my hand, but then backs off. Yeah. So at last, our question is, how can we convince her to join the family, which is currently 14 dogs in our care?
Good grief.
How do we convince her to come into the yard, wear the collar, be pet, etc., or should we have a different goal?
Suzanne, that is an excellent question. My head is spinning with 14 dogs, which means we're going to take a quick break. We have a client that just showed up. And soooo, we'll get back to you. I need to go talk to my therapist so I can answer this question, give you some good information. Just kidding.
I'm tapped out with 1.
So. Yeah, we're overwhelmed here. But we'll get back to you in just a minute. Everybody sit tight, and we'll be back.
Okay, so we're back from the client.
It's dark outside now.
It is.
Yeah, I get scared.
I know. So we just asked the question about Suzanne.
Hold me. Yeah, sorry.
Suzanne just asked a question about the dog in Mexico.
Yeah.
That she wants to see. Yeah, they know because they just heard it. Okay, go ahead. Answer.
Now it's my turn. Zip it up. Okay, so Suzanne, this is a really challenging one because, I mean, you really may have a feral dog situation or, a semi-feral dog that, my friend Jeff in Rhode Island has a feral dog that lives with him. What's that dog's name? Autumn, yeah. And so Autumn hangs out with Jeff, goes everywhere, goes in the van, but doesn't ever want to be handled. So Jeff gets an e-collar on her. I don't know how he manages that, but other than that, she'll hang, and she wants to be social to a certain degree, but she also always wants a certain amount of space because she's just not comfortable with real intimate human contact. So that's some experience I have with that directly. I don't know what the dog is like specifically, except from what you shared with me. So hard to say if this dog will be able to kind of bridge that gap. But the real only, I wrote a couple notes for you, and one is that it's a possible feral dog, and it may never be totally comfortable, like I just explained. And the other is that if you can get other folks to not feed the dog, and if you don't feed the dog except for by hand, and you can really draw the dog in, if the dog gets hungry enough, then that emotional drive, or I should say that primal drive to eat, will override the anxiety or the nervousness and allow the dog to come in closer. Now, will that ever bridge the gap and get the dog to the point where the dog is really comfortable and really enjoys petting and being intimate, like space-wise? I don't know. But if it was a dog I was really concerned about trying to see how far we could get, I would try as best I could to make sure that the dog had no other food resources to go after, and the only way the dog got to eat was through me. And I'd just be really consistent with that, and then see if you can bridge that gap. And you could really surprise all of us. If you did that, you could get to a point where the dog is like, hey, I really dig you guys, and everything's comfy, cozy, and could be awesome. Or the dog might eat out of your hand and be comfortable with that, but never be comfortable with being touched or something like that. It's hard to say with dogs that we don't know if they've had any initial human contact, except for maybe negative stuff like being shooed away or things like that. And so anyways, that's you
might as well just make it like what you guys have so far is pretty good. You might as well just stick with that. And some dogs are just,
I think her goal is to see if they can get the dog
well, yeah, but she did say at the end, should I change my goal?
Oh, she did.
Yeah, okay, just sort of is that feasible, or is it something that I should just? I think she said, or should we have a different goal? Literally.
Gotcha. Okay, so yeah. Good point. Glad you brought that up. But good points for Laura.
We should have a scoreboard.
I'll win.
No.
I'll win. I'm telling you. It's my show.
In the comments below, say who would win.
Uh-oh. More females watch this.
Should be
More females watch this.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're gonna. It's girl power. Girl power all the way. Anyways, so
I swear this is just tea.
So it's so hard to concentrate with all these antics. But anyway, so whether you should change your goal, it's really up to you whether you want to try or not. So I mean, you could just spend a couple weeks and see if you can hand feed the dog, and the dog only eats from your hand, and see what you get. And if the dog seems like it's making good progress, then you could go ahead and keep that goal. And if you try and make some good consistent effort, and you can tell the dog's really uncomfortable, then I would probably change the goal and let the dog just kind of live in the space that it's comfortable to live in. And that's that.
Okay, question number 5. This comes from Hazel Morrison.
Hey, Hazel.
She says, I have a 7-year-old border collie who's a little reactive on walks, but this reactivity escalates greatly when we're joined by other people or dogs. When we're walking alone, I can easily check him and he quiets down, but when we're walking with other people and dogs, it's near impossible. Do you have any tips on how to reduce this reactivity and general anxiety when we walk with other people? Thanks.
Yeah. So what we found to be really, really effective, and we've actually got some proprietary models of it here. I don't think they're for sale yet in the store yet, but they're blindfolds and earplugs, and we put them in, and the dogs seem to do really, really well, even in like really intense situations. Obviously, I'm being a jackass. So this is a good question, especially because like Laura's dog. Hercules has had some stuff with this, and I think still gets a little worked up more in that scenario than in others. But we see it. That's just a very personal example, but we see it all the time. And what happens is, dogs, the more energy they're around, the more people, the more dogs, the more excited they get, the more aroused they get. And whenever you're dealing with dogs that are in an aroused state, you have a much harder time managing. Their state of mind's already escalated. So when they see dogs, instead of so when you're solo with your dog's probably cooking at like a 1 or a 2. See a dog, and like you said, you can check him and he comes right back down. But when your dog is with all these other dogs, your dog's probably cooking at like a 4 or 5, just excitement, arousal wise. And so you're fighting that, and then you might be using levels that are too low for that scenario because you're used to the other. Or the excitement might be so high that even using some stronger corrections might be underwhelming your dog, and the excitement is overriding it. You might need to go higher, or you might need to do. I mean, if you've like Laura was asking before we recorded this, do you have an opportunity to do this regularly? Yeah. Is this something to work on regularly, or is this just a once in a while occasion? If it's a once in a while occasion, I mean, depends on how much energy you want to focus on it. But if you have a regular group of people that go out and work with dogs in a pack situation, then one of the things you can do is you can start a little bit, you can walk with them, but a little bit disengaged from the pack. So you can use space to release some of that pressure and take some of that arousal out of your dog and keep him in a good space. So instead of him being at a 4 or 5 or 6, maybe now, and not a 1 or a 2, maybe now he's at like a 3 or a 4, and he's more manageable, and you can slowly acclimate him, if you have a situation you can work at consistently like that. But that kind of stuff takes real diligent work, and it takes consistency. So if once a month you go out in a pack situation with a bunch of dogs or people, and you don't get to practice much, I'd say it's probably going to be a fairly decent sized struggle for you, because anytime there's a situation, a real novel situation that you don't get to work on, it's a real hard one to make progress with. Now you can make progress by busting his behind in a lot of other scenarios, but if you're already doing that and already laid that foundation and that groundwork, like Hercules is a very well-behaved dog, so he's not getting away with a bunch of monkey business, but in those situations he's sensitive to that pack dynamic much more. A lot of dogs, like my guys, don't really care. Junior and Belle, maybe Manny a little bit gets a little bit more excited, but Junior and Belle, they don't care. I mean, they also did a ton of pack walks, so that's a great example. Walks, it's a great example I hadn't even thought about until now, but I started out walking dogs. So Junior, Belle, and Oakley, when he was with me, I mean, we were doing, 5 at a minimum, and 14, 15 dogs, something like that, on a pretty regular basis. So my guys got really used to being around dogs, and that's like twice a day, or sometimes more. Sorry, I mean, when I was professionally walking, it was probably more than that. So that really helped. But if you don't have the opportunity to do that, it's a pretty challenging one.
Yeah.
So, and if you want to jump in, go ahead. My last closing thing would be just, I like the idea that if you do have an opportunity to work at it, try just removing yourself from the pack a little bit and see if you can find a space where your dog is aware that he's in the group, but he's not so overwhelmed by it that he can't manage himself, and that you can try and be successful. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay.
Okay, question number 6. Christine Levine.
Hey, Christine.
My shepherd...
Can I just interrupt and just say this is a weird low energy?
Low energy?
It's a little low energy, I think. I think I'm like...
It's been a stressful start.
It's been
a long week.
A lot of stuff going on, traveling and everything like that. So if we're not up to our usual fun-filled shenanigans, we promise we'll be back soon.
Maybe. Christine Levine, my shepherd lunges after high-speed vehicles. He's gotten better, however, he keeps slipping. He won't do it for weeks, and one day he'll do it all day, but not the next. We've tried everything to distractions, treats, e-collar. We've even made up exercises with the vehicle. I'm not sure how to approach it. He's very obedient and very active. He doesn't lack exercise, however, he could go all day. He's very alert and on guard when he's not playing. It's like he can't relax.
And a shepherd, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a fairly common thing. A lot of shepherds have issues with fast-moving objects like that. Yeah. And, I don't know if it's whether the herding mentality coming in, protective mentality, not liking the way that it's moving around their owners. It's hard for me to say. I'm not the shepherd whisperer, she is. But...
I love them.
So, but that's once again, so it's a really common thing. Not that makes it easier for you, but it's good to know that you're in good company and it's not some anomaly.
Yeah.
So she said he's pretty obedient. We just ended a touch-up session with a client of ours who was getting a little bit of reactivity on the walk after her dog went home from a board and train like a year ago. So what we did was just back to basics. So our version of what's obedient and yours might be different. They might be the same, but they might be different. So what we tend to go after is a really anal, really militant, really meticulous heel that is challenging for the dog. Like dog's head parallel with your hip, not in front at all. So your dog is doing a hell of a lot more work focusing on you than it is focusing on anything else. Mm-hmm. So that's always our first thing. And it might sound like there's not much there to work with. And if your dog will hold that position through a 45-minute walk with his head right there and not try and push against it, then you don't need to worry about that too much. But if you don't have that, then that's a good place to just start. So we always start with that because you got to get the state of mind right. Otherwise, you're fighting an uphill battle. So get the mind right, get the dog relaxed into a heel. If you can't get him relaxed in the heel, you've already lost a certain amount of the battle. He's already telling you he's aroused and it's already problematic. Once again, we're already fighting a battle that's with an elevated state of mind. So that's much harder. That said, I would probably be looking at, if you can, creating a bit of space, which is not always easy with vehicles, but creating a little bit of space. And then I would probably correct him pretty darn firmly with the e-collar.
Early.
I would correct him early before he's got, up on the back legs and lunging. What you need to be correcting for is as soon as your dog goes from relaxed forehead, all the skin is relaxed, ears are back. As soon as he goes from that to wrinkled forehead and ears up, and you're going to know the target, you're going to know the trigger that, oh, here comes a car or a motorcycle or a bicycle or a skateboard or whatever it is. You're going to know what it is. You got to correct right then. You got to correct firm. You want to really create an inhibition that the dog will do their work, so you're not managing the dog forever and ever and ever. So what you really want to do is the dog is in a good heel, relaxed, state of mind's good. All of a sudden, you get the first sign, ears come up. Don't wait. Is he going to explode? Is he going to go to the next level? That's your moment, that you have this small window in which to make a successful communication or to lose it. And if you don't catch that one right there, you're going to lose it. He's going to escalate. Then you'd have to use higher levels and you may not catch him. So like we always talk about capping versus chasing. instead of chasing him as he starts to escalate for that trigger, it's the second you see the ears change, pop, and bring him down. Now, you might get a vocalization, you might get something where the dog is concerned. To be honest, the moments like that where the dog can get himself and you into trouble, I'm really okay with some higher level corrections to create a future inhibition for that dog of don't do that. I don't care how much your inner shepherd is telling you to lunge or protect or corral that vehicle, whatever it is, don't do it anymore. But the trick is catching it really early and catching it firmly. Now, if you catch it too late and the dog's starting to escalate, then once again, that correction, even a decent level correction, can actually lift him off and give you more trouble, and that can be problematic. So if you're worried about redirects or anything like that, get a muzzle on him so you can do this work safely. And then the other thing you can do along in conjunction with this, once you start getting like better decisions from your dog, then you can also start using food drive stuff where you only feed him on the walks when vehicles come around, right? So you create the inhibition, you create good state of mind, and block any of the bad state of mind stuff, correct it early, get him to do his best work, and then you can actually reinforce that and reward it with food. But you can't just like give treats. You can't just, that stuff's not valuable enough. Even high level treats, I really don't think that will be valuable enough to create an emotional change. If you only feed him there, if the only time he gets fed is when he gives you a good behavior around something he doesn't like, then you'll start to see some state of mind change. It's a little more work because you gotta have the food and you gotta do all that. But you can mark it, he gives you a good behavior, good or yes, whatever you want to mark it with, and that gives you a couple seconds to be able to grab your food and calmly, reinforce like that, so you don't have to like have the food like that would be my suggestion for that. That's what we would be doing. But I would always go state of mind first. I'd always get that dog into it. To me, I've seen a lot of shepherds come through here with that kind of silly stuff, and to be perfectly frank, whenever I see that, that's a dog that's not completely in control. That's a dog that's not totally in his best space, handler, dog relationship wise. Would you agree? And that's no diss, but it's just there's different levels of obedience, and there's different levels of dogs being in a good space with an owner, and what can look like pretty good obedience can really be an aroused dog who's holding himself back to a certain degree, but is not in a really good state of mind and is not hyper respectful. And that can be problematic. So those are some things, Laura can probably expand or expound.
The only thing I was going to say that maybe we haven't touched on is just that, I am familiar with the shepherd that can go all day long. Sometimes it's important to make sure, did we touch on this? Make sure that he's also practicing a ton of duration and calming exercises, because it's easy with these guys that are like amped all the time, to like just want to run them. With my shepherd, he used to be on the treadmill for 11 miles and then running like off leash on the treadmill and then running. I'd do off leash recalls with him a ton, walk him for an hour, and just like he was just constantly. But it wasn't until I really, really started enforcing the calm stuff too that I saw a better thing and a better thing and a better thing. It's because we need to get him to turn off and be able to access that stuff, so he's not just acting on impulse all the time. So you'll see a different thing when those cars come around. It could just be part of the puzzle.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece that I hadn't even touched on. So points for Laura on that one. But that goes back to the state of mind stuff, guys. So once again, when I see, as soon as I picture your shepherd doing that, I picture Desmond, I picture Wallace, I picture all the shepherds that have been through here that have had that shepherdy arousal, I'm going to lose my mind kind of thing. And most of those dogs have not had a firm enough conversation about those kind of choices, and so there's no reason for them. Hopefully this makes a lot of sense. There's no reason for the dog to inhibit that choice.
Why do it?
Why, if it feels good and there's a huge release, why would the dog stop? There needs to be a correction. Now you might be saying, I do correct, but it might not be valuable enough for your dog to make a different decision. So we gave you a lot of information to chew on, and this is a great question for everybody, excuse me, who's dealing with reactivity of any sort, is go state of mind first. Get all those little tiny moments that don't seem like much.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, the walk we were just on with a client, she was like, this is a pretty good heel. We're like, actually, your dog needs to come back a little bit. He's pushing. So she wasn't noticing the little push. And the little push isn't the physical thing so much. It's the state of mind that's like, I know you want me here, but I want to be here. Yeah. So there's friction, right? You want this, and the dog wants this, and you're getting this, not this, you're getting this, I don't know how to do, like, tension. You're pulling apart. You've got conflicting objectives. And until you get the dog in a better space with that overall, that can be problematic. So you might have amazing stuff, but I just wanted to just kind of lay that foundational speech on you, and if not, you can jump into that and let us know what works.
Okay, question number 7. Julie Eastman. Hi again, Sean and Laura.
Hi, Julie.
I have a quick question regarding the use of both prong and e-collar together. Does the prong collar always go to the top of the neck with the e-collar next, or can it go the other way around? Which is the best and the most effective way to wear the combo when training?
Okay, so the way we do it, good question. The way we do it is prong collar at the top, e-collar in the middle, and then regular collar at the bottom. And I think Laura calls this affectionately the
e-collar sandwich.
Right. So it's just an easy way for owners to remember that the e-collar goes in the middle, sandwiched between the two other collars. So we want the prong at the top because that's where a prong is most effective. Now we're leaning on the e-collar for 99% of stuff. Prong collar is only there, like if you're training heel and stuff like that, then it's really essential that the fit's good. So you can use the prong. I'm doing all these hand things, but they're not on the screen. So that the prong, you can use really sensitive pressure and use the e-collar to train that stuff. But once the dog is healing nicely and you're leaning mostly on the e-collar, the prong is really just there for backup and gentle guidance for situations where you're like moving a certain direction and the e-collar's not giving them enough information directionally which way you want to go. So try and keep this short so I don't go down the long path of blah, blah, blah. So prong, right?
Prong,
just gotta go,
e-collar,
prong,
flat collar.
But I just wanted her to understand why, right? So if you put the e-collar up here and then the prongs underneath it and you are using the prong to put any pressure, you can start fudging around with the e-collar and moving around, and that can mess things up. So that is the reason why it's Snotty Pants.
No, I'm just saying. It's a quick one. Okay, so we've got question 8. This is Jessica Phillips on Instagram.
Hey, Jessica. Instagram. The Instagrammers are coming through.
Yeah, she's Jessica Hill on Facebook, but Jessica Phillips, I think. I have a really anxious, excitable dog, and I want to know how to properly have a play session with training, foundation training. I feel sometimes that it's all training and no play. What's the right ratio for play to training? I've been letting my dogs play inside on my terms, but I don't know if they should be allowed to do that or if they should only play outside. Both are a little pushy, one more than the other, so I've ordered an e-collar so I can be on top of them. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Jessica. So, Laura, I'm going to let you answer this. What would you suggest about the play inside? What do we have
I
on that?
strongly suggest keeping play outside if you have a yard or if you have a place to go do that. We like to, especially when we're starting training and you have pushy, bratty stuff and maybe some relationship issues going on, we want to have the dog discern that inside is a place of calm, structure, rules, boundaries, all the good stuff, and then outside's the fun place. But if you don't have the option, if you live in an apartment, then you are going to have to, fudge that a little bit. I live in an apartment, and I take my dog to the park, or we go out to my driveway to play together. So, we do a little play inside, but we like to have that discernment. And then in terms of kind of the splitting the difference, you just want to make sure it's not like 4 hours of play and 2 hours of inside structure. You want the structure, especially at the start, to be the overriding, time. And then
especially if you're trying to get your dog into a good space.
Yeah.
You said one room's kind of bratty and a little pushy. So probably would want to go heavier on the
Heavier on
structure.
inside, and then outside play, what, 30 to 60 minutes, or, you know,
Yeah,
maybe 15
dogs
to
don't need to
60
be
minutes.
playing all day long.
Yeah.
They really need to learn how to manage themselves in our world, and our world isn't always about playing. It's about like, hey, you might want to go run around the block and go crazy right now, but I need you to just lay here and be calm and cool, because that's what's going on in life. Yeah. So that's a really good thing to condition. In addition to that, I wrote a little note here, basically that you could turn some of the play stuff, which could be really valuable. I might have mentioned this in another question, but you can turn the play stuff into a training,
Work,
training stuff as well. So especially once you get the e-collar on, that makes it real easy. And please take your time and be careful and go through all the videos and don't rush. It's easy to rush with the e-collar. And if you have any problems, hire somebody to help you through with that. But you can do a lot of cool stuff with the play, where I think I mentioned before in this video, where you can have the dog, wait. You can throw the ball and the dog's not allowed to go for the ball until he's released. You could have your dogs play and get rambunctious, blah, 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 and then have down, and both of them have to just give them 30 seconds. And it's not punishing them, it's teaching them to really manage excitement, right? It's like kids. If you don't ever teach kids how to quiet down, they'll just stay up here until they fall asleep. So with the dogs, it's so much easier if you just give them lots of practice of like, here we are excited, and now we're quiet. And then break, and you can release them, let them get all worked up, play, run around, be goofy, and then switch your energy down. And then just have them lay down. So that's a really good way to practice that. We do a lot of that stuff here. But like I said, just getting them to wait. It's a hard one for dogs if they've got ball drive to watch a ball go flying and hold themselves in a down or a sit. It's really hard work. So that can be a really great exercise for dogs. So you're getting play, and you're getting structure, and you're getting relationship building. You're getting all that really valuable stuff. So that would be my answer, and I think we covered the whole thing, right? Yeah. So definitely prefer outside play if possible.
If you can.
Yeah. So
cool. Bye. All right. Cool. Question number 9. Another cool question.
Yep.
Kevin Pratt.
Hey, Kevin.
Sean and Laura. One of the dogs goes to his crate with no problem. The other one lays on the floor and rolls on his back and won't follow the command. He thinks it's a game.
It is a game.
I use prongs when training. I'm not using an e-collar yet because it's a little out of budget. What do you think or recommend?
Kevin. So we get this a lot. So a lot of dogs are like, I don't want to go in the crate, Dad. I want to be out here. I want to play. I want to do whatever I want to do. And so one of the things we see a lot with crate issues is that the owners will battle the dog. You get the crocodile rolls or whatever the dog's doing, and finally get the dog in the crate, and you're like, good grief, we're done. Okay, now I can go like watch Ice Capades or something like that. That's the only thing I could come up with. I don't know what's on TV anymore. Lawrence Welk. So what happens is typically people they'll battle their dog to get him into the crate or something like that, or they'll work real hard. Maybe battle's not the right word. And then they'll take the leash off and they'll put it away, and then what ends up happening is you got to fight that battle again the next day or later on that day. So what I recommend, what I always do, is when I have crate issues, take the dog, open the crate door, dog comes up, leash and prong on, dog has to pause, and then I say crate, and if the dog struggles, I don't pop, right? So that could be a problem as well, as you want to make sure the way you share pressure in your conversation. If you pop, then your dog's much more liable to give you a reaction like that and roll or disagree and kind of get nutty about it. So it's just firm, and I'm just holding my hand like this because it's hard to do otherwise, but it would just be hold the leash and then just pressure in, guide the dog in. Now, if the dog struggles, just stick with him. Don't raise your voice. Don't get nutty. Don't get tense. Don't get frantic. Just stay cool and make sure you get the dog in. If you have to use the other hand to kind of like move the booty in, it's not like pretty dog training. Get the dog in. Shut the crate door. Leave everything on. Now, open the crate door. Do the crate door exercise. Dog tries to move out. Slam the crate door shut. Take a step back. You want to be able to have that door completely open with no spatial pressure from you. Be able to stand back and have your dog sit and wait, or it doesn't even have to sit, but just wait and honor that threshold and not come out until you give him the release. And then I'd let him out, and then I'd turn him right back around, crate, exercise in. And if he battles you, stick with it, stay calm, stay cool, get it, wash, rinse, repeat, or rinse, wash, repeat, however people say that, and and do it over and over again, and do it until there is no resistance, right? If it takes you 35 minutes, if it takes you an hour, it's much better to get this all done within an hour than, you know, for the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years, always having crate issues and your dog kind of being a nutty, kind of bratty guy about something he doesn't like. So it's not good for the crate, and it's not good for your relationship in general. So be wary of the way you're sharing pressure, and then if you're using pressure right and just gently guiding but firm, right? Because if your dog's really resisting, firm, make sure that, you know, you're not being too soft, and then just repeat over and over and over again until your dog's like, I give up, I'm going in, all right, I get it, you're not going to give up, Dad. And then that's when you've really made some progress, and then the next day you should see things in a much better space. And the next day, if there's any residual stuff, go after it and continue. And what you'll see is, you should see within a few days, you know, typically with us, because we do it a lot, within a day or two, it's usually done. So that would be the answer to that. Don't say cool.
Hot. Question number 10.
Are we
Crystal.
at the finish line?
No, we have one more after this. Remember,
okay.
It's apologetic.
It's our shame,
Apology.
our guilt question. Yeah.
So, Crystal,
Yep.
I have been helping an insecure, fear-aggressive 140-pound mastiff mix for a couple months.
Oh.
He's made great strides in not being as reactive towards other dogs and people, but every now and then he redirects and bites his handler. I correctly showed him how to use a prong for walks along with the dominant dog collar or slip to help him control just in case. We did basic obedience with the e-collar. He does great on recall. Yesterday we tried to clip his nails and he started getting mouthy and playful. So I used this as a training tool and just had him lay down and relax on his side in a non-forceful way, but he took that as a challenge. We got the muzzle and proceeded to try again calmly, and he exploded in rage, standing up, attacking. I used the dominant dog collar to avoid the attempt at bites until he calmed down. He did relax. At one point he lifted his head up, and I gently touched the side of his neck to have his head go back down, and immediately his paw came up and he tried to attack me from the back. Did the same thing of avoiding bites and having him relax, walking around, and then lay down again on his side. He growled, and I gave him a slight correction of the leash, and he exploded again. Danced around. At this point, I'd already been beaten with the wire muzzle, and my strength was diminishing, so we waited him out until he gave up. It took about 15 minutes. My question is, how do we react or control the attack bite if it happens? My concern is that if there's ever an emergency where he hurt his paw and they need to assess him or something like that, that this aggressive behavior will escalate.
Wow. Crystal. Whew. This is one I'm even like reluctant to even, you know, answer in this context like this, just because the implications are so serious. And I don't mean this in any way to be dismissive or anything like that, but only just to remind you to be so careful. Dogs this big with this propensity to do this kind of stuff, obviously, you know, it can be dangerous, and you can end up in a very, very bad situation, as can the owner. So I have to be really cautious about what I recommend here, because what I might do and what I might recommend, you know, might be very different things. That's a tall order. So a couple notes I wrote down. I would probably lose the prong collar. So the prong collar is probably gearing him up and getting him in a bad space and getting him more agitated and more putting him more like in a fight drive kind of thing. So I would dominant dog collar and e-collar. Excuse me, guys. And I'd use the e-collar for all the heel information and lose the prong probably in totality. So you've got the e-collar for heel, for sit, for all that stuff on the walk that you need, for correcting, for any, looking at dogs or anything like that. And then, which is the e-collar shares pressure in such a different fashion than the prong, that compared to the prong, it's so much better at de-escalating a dog than escalating a dog. So whenever we have reactivity issues, we always go to e-collar and just barely use the prong for just back up. But with a big guy like this that's that dangerous or that reactive, I'd want to get rid of the prong in case that's what's causing it, which probably it is. It's probably pissing him off terribly. So so dominant dog collar, e-collar. Now, if you're doing all your work with the e-collar and getting him to heel with that, and he's really nice, it's also very neutral interaction. So there's not a lot of like confrontation and handler, like physical and mechanic stuff, which can be really helpful keeping the owner in a good space, calm and relaxed, and then also not having the dog feel like there's this thing going head to head. So I definitely recommend that. If there's any concern about the redirects, that dog's got to be on a muzzle whenever you guys are working the dog. And if you're already doing that, I apologize if I'm being redundant or overly obvious, but I have to just say that be really, really careful. A dog like this can just really hurt somebody really bad very, very quickly. So and then let's see what else. What I was going to say is that if you're using the e-collar on the walks and the dominant dog collar, and even with all that good stuff and no prong, and he starts to key off, then obviously you've got the dominant dog collar where you can take some of the drive out of the dog and rather than the prong, which is probably going to escalate. So those would be the tools I'd use for that. I probably wouldn't really focus on the nail stuff. I'd be very cautious about what battles I wanted to pick as far as creating leverage and state of mind change with this dog in situations where we've got a good fighting chance at winning. And then I would focus on that stuff down the line if I'm going to focus on it. But to be honest, the last thing I'm worried about is like if the dog doesn't like his feet being touched, like you got bigger fish to fry. You got to get this dog to be like safe.
Yeah.
You got to get this dog to be safe on walks, and you got to get him to be safe in the house.
The dog should definitely be, I think, or she's a trainer, but I think, unless you're working with dogs like this consistently all the time, dogs at this level, it's definitely a dog that should be seeing someone who is doing work with that kind of dog, because it can be such a such a danger. So if it's out of your comfort zone,
it might be in your comfort zone, but I would, with dogs like this, it's always great, especially if you can have a second handler, So if we're working with really, really dangerous dogs or really, really big dogs, it's really great to have another trainer with you and have two lines on the dog, and then you can have a really safe interaction and really manage the dog in a different way while keeping everybody safe. Yeah. So there's some different protocols for that for a really giant guy with a really bad attitude. But the vets, if there was a paw issue, the vets are going to muzzle him, and so he can do anything that he wants to do, and it might be ugly, and they can always sedate him, something like that. But honestly, I would take that off my menu as far as something that I'm concerned about right now. Like, you got to get this dog to stop being a jackass. You got to get him to be a polite guy, and it sounds like, to be perfectly honest, you don't have a lot of buy-in at this moment as far as respect level going on. And if he's and I don't mean that like you got to dominate him. I just mean like things are kind of out of whack. And so that can be a byproduct of the tools escalating him. It can be so many
approach over your head.
Yeah, it could be an energy imbalance. It could be a dog that like, some dogs will absolutely pick on females more than they'll pick on males. It's a weird thing, but we see it pretty frequently. So, I want you to be really careful. And if you got the muzzle on, then if you got a good muzzle like a Jafco on to where you can't really get anybody at all, then you've got a pretty good level of safety. But let's just start basic. Just get to the dominant dog, get to the e-collar. I know you've already done a lot of foundation, so great. So go to those tools. Get him to be the most polite frickin' gentleman in the world on walks, in the house. Lock him down. No free time. This guy you're busting his butt. Like, it's what we always preach. It's just go after all these small moments and like get this guy to where he's like hopping to everywhere in the house and on the walks in a certain fashion. And that's a great way to start changing that state of mind of that entitled, bratty, I'm going to do what I want to do kind of thing without fighting big battles. Yeah. So it's an easier way to kind of go after that stuff. And then you know, and then if you've got big stuff going on with like literally like attacking you stuff, then that's a whole different enchilada. And I really don't want to get into specifics of how I would address that, because I don't feel comfortable in this medium getting into that stuff, just because I don't want to be responsible for recommending anything that gets anybody hurt or anything like that. This is a very dangerous thing, and so that's about as much as I can give you on that. So just please be safe. Please.
Be safe.
Yeah, get another handler. 2 lines on that dog is such a better way for these big dudes. Yeah. So.
All right. Cool.
Yep. So well, guys. So
I have to leave, so we're gonna do a false wrap up.
Miscommitment here has got to. She's got to go get some frozen yogurt.
No. So I'm gonna just read this last question, and then I'm gonna take off. I have a workout like 10 minutes ago.
Oh really? Oh well, then that's pretty nice thing that you hung around for. I appreciate it. Is Hercules going with you?
Yeah, of course.
Does he go to the workout?
No.
Okay.
Not this one.
Okay. Yeah, just checking. All right. I'm stalling just to get you in there.
I really have to go. Okay. My question for you pertains to my 2-year-old Siberian Husky, Link. I have practiced balancing. This is from Jeff Weber, by the way.
Hey, Jeff.
I've practiced balancing, calming, relationship-oriented, drive-based training with him for most of his life, and Link is an extraordinarily calm, obedient Husky. He's strong, stubborn, determined, energetic, social, friendly, talkative, whatever. I feel my last remaining obstacle towards my checkmate with his calming training is in high distraction social scenarios where he hang out, like cafes, etc. These scenarios are really the only time he tunes out and becomes excessively stubborn. He'll just start talking, and the lack of focus is sometimes embarrassing. I've jokingly taught him just hang out command his whole life, and now that he's older, it's become easier, but he's not quite at the point where I want him to be. I'm incorporating place, as well as using tug toys to desensitize him to these scenarios through staging our approach and transferring some prey drive and excitement onto me. I want him engaged to me, not the stimulating scenarios of those places. These places are filled with dog lovers who have treats. And he knows this. Any tips on making my just hang out command a reality for us? He walks on a prong in a tight heel and is responsive to commands in these situations. I just want to get him to pay more attention to me and relax like he does at home on walks or when we're jogging, skating, or sledding. Sledding. All right, guys.
Lucky you. All right, see you later.
Okay.
Okay, guys. The guy's name was?
Jeff.
Jeff. Dog's name was Link?
Link.
Okay.
I'm going to go this way.
Toodles. Okay, Jeff. So we train kind of different, so it's a little bit of a different thing. So you've been doing more drivey kind of work, which creates a more drivey kind of dog, which creates a different state of mind. So I train very specifically for just typical family dogs. And most of those owners want less drive, not more. So I've never had an owner say, I want my dog to be more excited and more drivey. So that's really the market that we serve. So it's kind of a little bit of a different thing that approach-wise. So and nothing wrong with it. I have plenty of trainer friends that train in that fashion, and it can be a blast. The problem is that a lot of these dogs get juiced up and they spend a lot of time in this more elevated fashion, being more drivey. So we spend a lot of time on just calming exercises that look really boring, but they're really conditioning a dog to be able to be just chilled out no matter what's going on around them. So you might have been doing this stuff. I know you said you've been working on place, but like if it was one of my client dogs, like place would be one of its most solid, like way before any of the other stuff, we would have place like knocked out of the park, and that means place with dogs running around in the house playing while your dog is in place. You know what I'm talking about place like bomb-proof place. I'm talking about knocks on the door. I'm talking about you dancing around, jumping over, running around him, jingling food bags, other dogs if you've got them, that's what our training environment would be. So he would, front door open, dog on the porch in place while dogs and skateboards and bikes go by, all that kind of stuff to desensitize the dog and really condition the dog to get comfortable that no matter, because this is such a cornerstone of our training program, is we try and condition and desensitize the dog. It's a doggy meditation. It's really about all the stuff going on in your environment is none of your business, right? You don't need to be triggered by it. You don't need to be aroused, and you don't need to be stimulated. So we work really hard, and it's not about creating zombies, because all these dogs have the other side. They can go right into play and have all the fun stuff. But we work really hard at cultivating the calm, the quiet, the chilled out, the relaxed. And I'd say that for what you're looking for, that's what you really need to focus on. Personally, I wouldn't, and once again, you got to do whatever feels right for you, but I wouldn't be doing drivey things like tug to try and redirect that or focus that energy or channel it. I would be looking for, it's time for you to zip it up, be quiet, and not move and not make a sound while everything goes on in the world around you. And start small and work up big to where your dog can handle anything. And that when going to like an outside place, your dog's been so conditioned to it that it's not such a big deal. I'd be shutting down every vocalization in the house. Every talkative moment is, I know Huskies are talkative. I grew up with Huskies and Malamutes. So I get that, but it can also be like demanding stuff. It can also be aroused stuff. And it's like, what we're looking for is off, right? On, off. So your dog is really good at on, and then he's struggling in certain situations with off. Maybe in your house he's got a pretty good off switch, but that means you've got to really up your game with the off switch in different scenarios, and you've got to find out, like, how do you get him to learn how to be calm and chilled out no matter what. And I really believe in duration work. I believe really strongly that's how we get all these stressed out, freaked out, reactive, anxious dogs to be chilled out and have a fighting chance at walking down the street, not being reactive, or laying at a cafe and being calm and relaxed, because they get conditioned to do so much of it. So our focus is on a hell of a lot of that stuff, which is kind of boring. It's not the exciting, fun kind of dog training stuff that you guys might be gravitating towards. So it might be a weird one, but you could absolutely incorporate both, unless, if you're just looking for a drivey dog to like compete with, or have like, do like major drivey stuff, you might have a tough time getting both sides to be extremely, from what I understand from my friends who do this work, they don't want to deter any of that drive. So they don't even want to tell the dog to be quiet, because they want the dog to be like up here. So I'm shooting for something very different, which is a dog that's much more relaxed and much less aroused. So doing some of that duration work might take some of the edge off of some of your dog's drivey stuff, and that may not be what you want. So you might have to make some decisions, not full like either ors, but you might have a little bit of compromise, that like, if you want the dog to be better in the scenarios where you want him to be chilled out at patios or cafes, that might mean that he's got a little bit less drive for some of these other things. Maybe not. Maybe he'll still be the same exact guy. My dog Belle is drivey as all get out with tug and everything like that, but she can shut it off and be the calmest, coolest dog anywhere in the world the next moment. So she came with a lot of that stuff, but we've also worked on, like, when it's not playtime, it's just quiet time. And my dogs have gotten really used to that lifestyle, just quiet time, quiet time. So that's what I'd suggest. It's a pretty long, drawn-out answer, but I guess this is the bonus answer, so I gotta give you guys the good stuff. So once again, some different training strategies and or different training approaches, and it's a good example of how certain training approaches create a little bit more stuff, a little more juice, a little more drive, and so that could be counterproductive for what your end result is, or maybe you've got competing interests. Maybe you're like, I want this drivey guy, but I want this really calm guy, and you might have to really work hard to get both of those. But personally, if it was my dog, I want a dog that I can hang out with more and like kind of just take life easy, take it easy, and incorporate more and take them everywhere and not be worried about them. So I'd be focused on a lot of duration work with high levels of distraction, and then work on keeping that drivey stuff when you want it. But yeah, like I said, I don't have a lot of experience doing those kind of activities with dogs, just because it's not the kind of training I do. So you're going to have to kind of find your way and see what makes sense to you. And I think if you do some long duration place and down, and you really push the envelope with it, I think you'll see some pretty darn good results. But shut down all the arousal, shut down any whining from place, any barking from place, any talking from place. It's not for that. It's for being quiet and relaxed and serene, and that's what you're trying to condition. So that is my answer for your question, Jeff and Link. And I know I talked a ton, so hopefully it didn't get you confused or lost. But thanks so much for the question. Everybody, thank you so much for being patient with us. We really apologize. We try like the dickens to get these out to you guys on time, and sometimes life just conspires against us, or the tech world does, and we just can't get stuff done. So, but no, we're trying, so this will be up hopefully tomorrow. Laura had to split, so we can't get it edited tonight, but we shall get it edited hopefully tomorrow and out for you guys. And once again, we appreciate your patience, appreciate all the awesome questions, and we appreciate your trust in asking us these questions. And we do our best to try and be as transparent and honest and helpful as we can be. And so we really appreciate and value this, and can't thank you guys enough. So that's it. Sean signing off. Sans Laura Morgan, who split the scene. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.